Hey guys, I am Bean from Space Cadettes, and this is Space Cadettes, the show, with extra letters on the end of it. And today I'm joined by Jenna and Shanice, and we're going to start off talking about our favorite Jewish comic creators. So let's see, who wants to go first to share their favorite?
Well, I would love to go first. I feel like, I don't know why, but I'll do it first. So my favorite is actually Jack Kirby, and I don't even think I need a reason why. Just all the things that he has created has just been like outstanding, because not a whole lot of people realize that some of the most, like, the biggest names in the comic industry are Jewish.
Yeah, that was which you came up with the idea for this episode because it's kind of it's much more personal for you.
Yeah, I'm a little bit part Jewish. So it just felt like this was the right time to be able to like bring that up, because there are so many creators and creators, writers, artists, they're all Jewish, and then so many characters are Jewish too, like Hal Jordan, I think, is half Jewish. And so it's really cool to see that that's really like out there more and more. So what about you, Shanice? Who's your favorite Jewish creator?
I guess creators, Jerry Siegel and Joel Shuster.
Yeah.
Creators of Superman. And I remember reading this article like from a couple years back where it talked about how if you think about Superman's origins, Superman is a Jewish character, or you can make the argument that he is a Jewish character. We need to find a link for it, but it was just really fascinating, and considering the background of Superman's creators and when Superman was actually like created and what's going on in the world at the time, it is really cool to see the most well-known like superhero of all time like has Jewish origins. So I think those were my two favorites.
Yeah. And Bean, who's yours?
So, well, number one, because I'm not Jewish and I didn't really grow up around the Jewish community at all, and like it wasn't really on my radar that much. And when I started researching this, it's crazy because literally like all of the early creators were Jewish. And then like once I read a couple of different things that were about how that like so many of the superhero stories are based on the struggles and like the difficulties of the Jewish community. And it just, to be honest, I got distracted for like 2 hours reading about it. But I think I've just got to go with Stan Lee. I mean, just all of the characters that he created, and like it was crazy because I grew up with them and I read them so much and everything, and then to kind of step back and realize that it was a lot about his experience. And I mean, the fact that he even changed his name, and so many of them even changed their names to sound less Jewish because they had to, because they felt they had to. That was just crazy.
Definitely, because it was a different time. Like people, it was a weird time. People didn't trust really anybody that wasn't a certain like way that they knew. Like if you were Jewish, if you were a different color, if you were from another country, they didn't trust you. They didn't want you here. they didn't want you there. They didn't want you either in your businesses and comics or anything like that. And it's really cool to see the way that they got snuck into comics.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the first like really overt like reference that I remember seeing is Magneto's backstory, where he was in the concentration camps and everything. So like what are you guys like what's your first time that you really saw something like in comics? It was like, oh, this is about Judaism, you know?
Probably Magneto from Heat 2. I think that was the first time I ever saw us represented in any comic, you know, because it wasn't until later that you learned the backstories of some, like when Hal Jordan became Green Lantern. Not a whole lot of people knew that. I think it's his father's Jewish and his mother's Catholic, or it's the other way around. I can't remember, but that wasn't said right away. That wasn't said till much later. And Magneto was the first one that I saw. Yeah. What about you, Shanice?
So it's weird. It's like a toss up between two, Magneto and Kitty Pryde. So it's interesting that you have like two X-Men related characters, or at least ties to the X-Men, in a way that like you like that they were like the first two like Jewish characters, at least that I saw in comics that I was aware of, because I know Kitty Pryde, she had like her Star David necklace and things like that, and of course Magneto with his background. So it is interesting that with all our answers, it's like Magneto, because I mean, it's pretty cool, and I don't know, it's interesting. That was our one answer.
I love Magneto as a character. It's just like you see his backstory and you kind of expect him to be a villain, but at the same time, he doesn't always feel like a villain. He feels like almost an anti-hero, but I guess he is a villain. And I guess everybody kind of knows Magneto, especially from the movies.
Mm-hmm.
The thing with like Magneto too, it's like it's kind of like a Killmonger situation where like you don't want to say like that they're wrong. It's the methods you don't necessarily agree with, but it's like at the end of the day, it's like Magneto has a point. Like if I was in a situation, I'd be doing the same thing. Yeah. So it's fascinating. I never saw Magneto as like a villain, like straight up. Like there were other characters in that franchise. So I'm like, I feel like they're a little bit worse.
Yeah. And I guess that really brings up the sort of anti-hero versus villain, because Deadpool can either seen as a villain from some people versus an anti-hero the rest of the time.
Right.
And it's cool to see how they're changing up the stories nowadays.
Yeah. It's also like, interesting that we all three said that, and that really shows like how much one character's origin story can like stick in like so many people's minds, and like how important that can be,
Definitely.
Oh gosh, another one. Harlequin.
Oh, that's right.
Oh yeah, Harley Quinn, yeah.
It's like I always forget until there's like a reference, which I am happy to see that there's more and more references to her religion, like that, especially like on the show or in the comics. So it's like, oh, I want more of this. Yeah, I want more acknowledgement of it, So that's really neat.
And I don't think originally they had that plan for her, because originally Harley Quinn was just a one-off character in Batman, The Adventure Begins. And she was so popular that everybody was like, we need her in more. So they put her in more, and then she got added to the comics, and then she got her own comics, and then she stopped being a villain. And it was like, that was a weird, like the way her character came about was just absolutely not heard of, because most characters are from comics first. She was from the show first. Want to be in that pitch.
Because I want to say her and Renee Montoya, she was a question. They both made a start in Batman animated series, and they were just huge fan favorites. So it's like DC is like, let's just put them in comics and we'll see what happens. And now they're still here 20 years later.
Yes.
Yeah. So it makes me happy. Harlequin's awesome.
So on the show tonight, Bean saw The Tick. Shanice, I have to know, did you ever watch the series?
The original or the Amazon one?
Either.
So I never watched the original. I watched a little bit of the Amazon series, and I think there was a cartoon back in the 90s, but I don't really remember it.
See, I saw the cartoon and then I saw the Prime one, and I was like, yeah, that's Crunk.
The character, not you're not just saying that's Crunk. That's
No, I mean the actor who plays Crunk. I can't remember his name right now. It's just like it just disappeared. But it's
Patrick
the actor
Warburton something. Oh. Almost Patrick something. I'm so sorry if he ever watches this.
But it's Crunk. I'm sorry.
Crunk.
Crunk forever.
Crunk and the Tick.
Yeah.
That's what I'll always remember his name as, is those two things.
Yeah, I remember the Tick being out and I think even as a kid, like I had like a little McDonald's toy of him or something, but I think for whatever reason it just didn't come on maybe when I like had access to TV, because I didn't always like get to watch TV at like normal times. So if it didn't come on at like certain hours on Saturday or Sunday, I didn't see it. So
like that Saturday morning cartoons.
Yeah.
Okay. What was your favorite Saturday morning cartoon?
I loved Scooby-Doo. Which, if you've seen my pull box list, doesn't that make sense? Like,
yeah, definitely.
What was yours, Jenna?
My favorite one was on HBO, and it was called Happily Ever After: Fairy Tales for Every Child, where they took every fairy tale and they changed it. So I think they did like The Princess and the Pea, where you remember the story where she's like 1,000 mattresses and the queen sticks a pea in one, and whichever princess could fill it was a real princess, right? But they did it in a sort of Asian style type. So that was like so cool to see. And they had like a couple of seasons of it, and that and Crashbox, which was also on HBO. Crashbox was literally the most random things you could think of. It was like 5 or 6 little claymation shows stuck together every week, and it was different shows every week. And I was just like, those were. I still watch them. Jay had never heard of them, and then we got HBO Max, and I saw them, and I was like, everybody I talk to have no idea what I'm talking about, and I'm like, Crashbox, where they smashed your brain at the beginning and then quizzed you, and they're like, what? Like, never mind. So what about you, Shanice? What was your favorite Saturday mornings?
So I was a weird kid. So on Saturday mornings, I would wake up too late to usually watch the cartoon. But when I was able to watch it, so I'm like flipping through all the channels to see if there's any cartoon. I remember Doug was on ABC when I was a kid, and I don't know, that was the one I really remember. But I don't know, like I usually get up at like noon on Saturdays, and usually by the time all the cartoons are off. So I was like, oh well, crap.
So did you stay up for the late night, like it was Toonami, where you'd see the anime in the middle of the night then?
Yes.
That too. That's how I would keep up with my Sailor Moon, because they took Sailor Moon off. They took Sailor Moon off of I forget which channel it was, where it would be like 3 p.m. So you'd be like rushing off the school bus trying to go watch it. They took that off and put it on Toonami in the middle of the night right after Dragon Ball Z, and I'd be like sneaking into so how we had set up was the only TV we had in our house was in the dining room. It was like this big. And it was like mostly foil as an antenna, and I'd be like, I can find it. Yeah. So what kind of stuff did you watch on Toonami, or like the late night anime stuff?
Oh gosh, late night Toonami. Inuyasha. I couldn't really like stand the show, only because there was like one character I couldn't even stand it. Like to this day, I can't even say their name without getting like a little bit irritated. But and the hatred runs deep after all these years.
I must know.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it was just like the voice of that character just kind of aggravated me. So I'd wait until that was off and then watch like Cowboy Bebop.
Okay.
Afterwards, so definitely, I remember watching a lot of Cowboy Bebop when I was a kid.
We're gonna come back to Cowboy Bebop.
Yeah,
we're gonna come back to that. Did you watch any of the old school animes back in the day, Bean?
I did not. I wasn't allowed to, and but then actually, I was allowed to stay up and I could watch one of the shows. It was the very first show that came on Adult Swim for a long time, and that was the X-Men Evolution.
Oh yeah.
Was it Evolution or was it Revolution? Which one was it? Was it Revolution?
It was Evolution.
Evolution. Okay. And I loved that. That's like actually like I've avoided rewatching them because as a kid, I loved that show so much. I mean, it was just that one of those things where you watch it, and especially as a kid, you had just such big feelings about it. I don't want to rewatch it as an adult and be like,
it's still just as good.
It still holds up. Like,
it still holds up. Yeah. Even like as an adult, I sat back and watched it and I was like, yep, this is the best Phoenix that they've put out to date.
Like awesome. My spicy hot take when it comes to the X-Men animated series, I'm making sure no one's gonna run here, like me. But I always preferred X-Men Evolution over X-Men the animated series. I always considered X-Men Evolution being the one that I technically grew up on because the animated series, I was a toddler. I can barely remember it, but I loved Evolution so much. It was so cool.
Made me feel
and
old.
I agree. Phoenix was the best version in that show.
Now I feel old. Thank you.
I was still alive. I don't know.
I think that it's interesting because I'm pretty sure that like I'm like my age is in between you guys. Like Shanice is younger than me and Jenna's older than me. So I think we have like this little like range of the early 90s and like late 80s. Like
okay, so we have to wrap back to Cowboy Bebop. I am on the fence. Like I loved the anime and I love the trailers looked really good and the music but the movie I'm not sure. I'm not going to give it any judgment till I see it, but I'm not sure yet. How are you feeling, Shanice?
I'm honestly excited for it. Like it's like any like live action anime. Like if I don't care for it, then the anime that I love will always be there. Like I can just go back to it and watch it. Like if it's great, then yay. If it's not, it's like, well, I can just go back and watch the original. I feel like how the show looks because it looks like it's doing its own separate thing and playing with the media a little bit.
Yeah.
And I'm a little bit biased towards the show because I really like John Cho. So I
really like yeah. Okay. Should he say that? Bean, any other thoughts?
I'm really glad like that you're also kind of excited about it, Shanice, because I usually like if anime like live action remakes like come out, I'm like, I don't care. But I love Cowboy Bebop and it's so chaotic already that I'm excited about it. Like it's the first time I've ever been excited about it with this, and it's kind of like in my mind logically I'm like I'm probably going to be disappointed from historically I'm going to be disappointed, but I'm still excited because I love Cowboy Bebop. Like it's awesome. I'm excited for it,
And if it gets more people like into Cowboy Bebop, then that makes me happy too because it's such a great show and the soundtrack is a banger. Like to the point I actually have it on vinyl. So if it gets more people into it, then all the better.
Oh my gosh, you have it on vinyl. That's so awesome.
Yeah, I can go grab it if y'all want to see it.
Yes.
I'll be right back.
Actually, every Saturday night when I'm working, at about 6, I put it on in the store. Like I put it on YouTube. I put the like Cowboy Bebop like OST like yeah.
I don't think there's another anime out there that had such an amazing soundtrack as Cowboy Bebop did.
Yeah. Oh, and I recently watched Space Sweepers, the Korean movie. Have you seen that one?
Oh no.
Oh my god. So I watched it, and like it's a South Korean like science fiction film, and I was watching it and literally like when it got done, I was like, why? Like I was like being kind of sarcastic, but also I don't know why this popped in my brain. I was just like, why do we need a live action Cowboy Bebop when we have this?
Okay, I'm gonna have to find it now.
It's so good. And it has like, for me, it has similar vibes. It has like the sense of humor. Everyone's kind of off. Like everyone has issues, and and it's obviously it's also like from South Korea. So at one point you just bawl because you've gotten so attached to the characters and then they are in distress and you just cry. And it is really good though. It's on Netflix. It's called Space Sweepers.
Is it a movie or a series?
It's a movie.
Okay, yeah. Cool. Now 2 hours of my life are gonna be wasted with me crying.
Yeah. Most of it is like laughing and like being excited. Also, they're just all goofy. I think it's a little goofier than Cowboy Bebop usually is. Like it's funny, and they're not good at the things they do sometimes. But
oh my gosh,
it's good.
I hope you know that if it's like 6 o'clock in the morning when I finish crying over this, I'm gonna call you and be like, thanks for this. Thank you. Click. And be like, okay.
Yeah.
Don't even say it. Just start stalling to the phone. Just hang up. Like,
yeah. Just dial. Thank you. Click.
Listen, I will say it is nowhere near Train to Busan. Do not worry.
Oh, I love Train to Busan.
But that one will have you sobbing for an hour.
Oh gosh, yes. Yeah, did you know they made a second one?
I didn't know that.
I can't find it. I want to find it.
Like, is it good?
It's so good. Ooh. The second one or the first one? I'm sorry, Shanice.
The second one.
It wasn't as good as the first one, but it was still pretty good. Mm-hmm. And you will still cry.
Oh.
Jenna doesn't cry for a lot, but Korean movies, they know how.
Some of them make me mad. Like the ones where they get you all invested and then the person dies. I'm like, you wasted my time.
Or amnesia.
You wasted my time. I'm crying and I'm mad.
I think what makes me mad is the amnesia stuff. Whenever they have amnesia, I'm like, why? Oh. You just had amnesia 3 episodes ago. Now you have it again? What's with all the amnesia? This is not Futurama. This is not all my circuits.
Like double amnesia.
I'm going to have explosive amnesia.
Oh, no.
I want to meet the writers of all my circuits. Like, was it the same writers who were writing Futurama that were writing all my circuits?
I guess so. You mean like the show within the show?
Yeah.
They were doing? It's gotta have been like what's his name? Matt Groening that like wrote a bunch of those. Yeah. That's so him. That's I think so.
I want to meet the person who came up with explosive amnesia.
I forgot that was from there. I thought that you just came up with that.
I'm not that creative. I wish I was. Oh no. Futurama, it has to be one of my favorite animated shows from the 2000s. It has to be. I'm pretty sure I've watched it a minimum of 12 times.
Shanice, do you have like a favorite animated show that you've watched a million times?
Oh, gosh. Samurai Champloo is one, and King of the Hill, which is like Texas anime.
Yeah.
I always tell people I can rewatch King of the Hill episodes like over and over again. And of course, like The Simpsons, like the classic episodes, they still hold up. Like again, almost like 20 years later. Well, I guess now like 30 years later.
Oh my gosh!
Oh my god! A long time.
What about you, Bean?
I'm about to say one, and I'm pretty sure it's just because we were talking about it earlier today, but it actually is one of my favorites that I've rewatched a bunch of times, and it's Gravity Falls, which is so good. It's like X-Files meets like an animated kids show.
Okay.
I love it so much. Like that one's so good. I think that and Bob's Burgers. I watch Bob's Burgers a lot.
Has anybody watched oh gosh, what was the name of the show? It's set in Canada. It's like the same style as Bob's Burgers. It's The Great North.
No, I haven't watched that one yet.
Oh, it's on Hulu right now, and they've completed the first season. I think they're almost done with the second season, but it's like the same animation style of Bob's Burgers, but it's set in Canada. And it's like, so it's this family, it's like a dad, his son, his fiance, his 2 other sons and his daughter. And what's funny is the daughter and one of the sons are known as Alaskan twins because they're only 10 parts apart in age.
Yeah.
And well, the mom left, but the dad's like, oh, she died bringing donated medicine to the children's hospital. And then, of course, his other son's fiance is like, do hospitals take donated medicine? And he's like, oh, my wife is dead.
Oh my God.
I need to watch
It's voiced, the dad is voiced by the same guy who does Ron Swanson.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. And then the youngest son's name is Moon, but he's always dressed as a bear. The most sarcastic and the most like survivalist of the entire family. It's like, there's a blizzard out there. Don't go out there. We need to go to the guest house to get my brother. Why? Like, that's just straight up what Moon says is like, why?
Yeah.
Don't do it. It's so good. Do you guys have any recommendations for shows that are out right now?
Animated or live action?
Let's start with animated.
That show on Netflix, it's from the guy who did Gravity Falls, actually. It's called Inside Job.
Oh, I love that show.
It's so funny. Like, I was not expecting for it to be as funny as it was.
That ending is a thing.
I've been really wanting to watch that one, but I haven't. Is it actually from the same guy who did Gravity Falls that wrote it?
So he produced it, but you can tell that his a thumbprint is definitely on it. I keep looking in the background for like a Bill Cipher reference or something.
Yeah,
but it's really good. I recommend it.
Nice.
So many hidden things in it. I love it.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. I don't know. You know, I'm always like years behind. I'm trying so hard to get caught up. And like my reading assignment that Jenna gave me this week is years and years. I mean, how many years ago did Marvel Civil War come out?
Civil War 1, because there was a Civil War 2 also.
There's another one.
Civil War 2.
There's actually a whole shelf of just Civil War trades at the store.
Oh, man.
Yeah, because they did all kinds of side ones.
Yeah, I knew they did a lot of side ones. I forgot there's a second one. But I read the first one. I do have some opinions on it.
So tell us your opinions. I must know.
Okay, so I read it and I really enjoyed it, but don't make my face big for this.
We need to know your opinions.
So, and I don't know if this is controversial or not, but I mean, and I don't like the whole we have to register the superheroes. I don't know what side most people are on, but I did not like that. So I was on Cap's side, I'm on the side of the rebels. And I don't know. I mean, it was just I kind of got where they were coming from with the registration and everything, but I was not for it. And then that wins at the end. So I was just I mean, and I was I get it, but okay. What did you guys think about it? What was your viewpoint on it?
I didn't think it was fair to ask heroes to register their info because I mean, Spider-Man even was the gleaming light. He was I'm Spider-Man. I've been Spider-Man since 15. And then what happens? That's what happens. Just in case anybody hasn't read, that's what happens. And then he's wait a minute, maybe this wasn't a good idea. And I was this is why you don't give away your secret identity to everybody, Batman. I mean, you shouldn't be giving out Batman. No, keep it a secret so that way people can't attack the ones that you love.
Mm-hmm. Keep it secret, keep it safe.
Yes.
They say it, and it's true, that everything is getting faster. You're not getting any younger, and time is the single resource that you can never get back or get any more of. So why walk into your local comic shop blind when you can go in laser focused on the best books on the shelf?
Hi everybody, and welcome to Minute to Skim It. Yeah!
Spend 1 hour with Miss Jen and Bean and they'll give you rapid-fire reviews of all the new comics hitting stores. Spend less time shopping and more time reading.
This is Provenance of Secrets.
This is The Heathens. I read Wolverine number 17.
Minute to Skim It, every Tuesday at 7 Eastern, 4 Pacific, on The Experience, Comic Culture and Sales. Imagine being at a convention and going to an interview panel that's just for you. No bustling crowds, no hours-long lines, just you, the moderator, and your favorite comic book creators. Well, this is pretty much that. Miss Jen sits down every week with 2 comic book creators for a live stream interview about their latest work, and you can ask them whatever you want. It's Talking Shop, Mondays at 5 Eastern on The Experience, Comic Culture and Sales.
What did you think, Shanice?
Oh boy. So with Civil War, I agreed with Cap, but only because Tony's whole side, they did literally everything wrong and made you hate them. So it's like just out of sheer principle, I had to side with Cap because you guys are doing everything wrong. When they made a clone from Thor and what happens in the book happens, you're like, why would you do that? Like, what's wrong with you? The only reason why I didn't mind like Restoration Act, like, you know, what happens at the end was if I feel like a lot of writers afterwards, you're like, let's just beat up Tony because he has his comedy. Like in like the Thor run that happened right after Civil War. Spoiler alert for like a almost 15-year-old comic now, but or almost 10-year-old comic now.
Yeah.
So Thor comes back, he finds out what happens. Tony flies down, he's like, oh, hey, Thor, so you've been away for a while, but you need to register as like a superhero. And Thor's like, you made a clone from my DNA that you stole, and this clone did something terrible. No, what's wrong with you? And then Tony's like, well, I gotta arrest you. And Thor just beats the brakes out of Tony, and it's great. And that was, I feel like, you know, with how Civil War ended, it's like, well, at least it was worth it just to see that scene because it was so deserved. Because Tony was such a word I can't say on this broadcast because I don't think we can curse. But he was a jerk. So Team Cap all the way in that comic.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah. I think I was just mad about Cap ending up in jail over it. That it was like, why?
Yeah.
And then of course I can't remember exactly what happens, but he ends up in a jail in a different dimension where he ends up being unalived. What? That's how we're gonna do this? Really, guys? Okay.
Oh my gosh, yeah, you're absolutely right, because like when like Cap was about to just Tony and like these random civilians are like, no, stop, you can't do it. I'm like, dude, let him. Like,
Let him.
Just now. Tony has it coming. Oh my god.
As somebody who literally read it last night because I had never read it before, it's fresh in my mind. And like it is like a very Captain America thing to do because like it's not just that the citizens have come out, which also like they do come out and they're like, stop beating up Iron Man. But like Captain America literally stops and is like, I'm not doing this for the right reasons, arrest me. Like, he just gives up. And, like, I don't know. I mean, and it is true, because, and this is kind of weird, but, like, because in the movie, I actually feel like Iron Man is, like, Tony Stark is more sympathetic because you see him be more emotional. And, like, I don't know if that happened, like, in his own comics, but in the Civil War comics, he is literally just like, beep, boop, must register. Like, he, like, and, like, I get that he's, like, sad, kind of, but, like, I don't know, he just gets in his mind. And that makes sense for me. It makes sense that Reed Richards would be like that because he would get obsessed with the data.
Yeah.
But, like, I don't know, Tony Stark has never followed the rules that much. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But,
Yeah.
Mhm.
So, speaking of the movie, how do you feel now that you've read the comic and seen the movie? Like, the differences?
I think, I mean, they're different, and I'm glad they did the movie the way they did. Like, I don't know, I think that if they had tried to stick closer to the comic, I don't think it would have been as good of a movie, because it's just a different medium. Like, are there things that you like missed when you watched the movie as somebody who read the comic first?
There was a lot of characters. There was so many characters. I wish they would have,
Yeah.
like, Cloak and Dagger. Cloak,
Mhm.
one of my favorite characters that does something huge in the middle of one of the big fights, and then no, don't even like have him. The Punisher wasn't even in there. Like, it was just like really big key characters weren't there, and it felt like it wasn't Civil War without those characters for me.
That's true. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like the idea and the main story behind it, that was kind of the same, kind of, I guess. But like Superman needing to have already his story up. Excuse me. Spider-Man already being grown up and having been married, have a kid, have a life and a family to come out the way he did, but instead they made him like he was so young and like he didn't like really understand the consequences of the side that he was picking. And then also like there was so much story that just got like flushed down the drain, just like whatever. And also there was just so many of like my favorite characters that weren't even there. And it felt like they were very key characters in the storyline that they were just like, nope. What about you, Shanice?
I was gonna say, it definitely is one of those things, like, even like the fight scene in the movie, it was a little underwhelming compared to like what you see in the comics. Is like what Jenna said, you had like just dozens of characters just squaring up
Every
against
Marvel
each other.
character is there.
And like one of my, yeah, like exactly like every Marvel character seemed like, because they were all in a way affected by this. And one of my favorite subplots was with the Fantastic Four, because of course Reed, he's pro registration, and Sue, I know the rest of the team, like they're on it too, but then something happens in the comic and Sue's just like, whoa, we are way off the mark with this. And Sue and Johnny, they join the other side. And I don't know, like with the movie, which I did enjoy, but I just wish that there are some things from the comic that they kept in the film, like more discussions on the Registration Act and not Tony, Steve, Bucky drama, which I didn't mind, but it was like, I want to know more about this act and how it affects the Marvel characters that we see in the.
I wish they would have done it as different movies.
Right.
Oh yeah.
Or different movies, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't even think about it. I don't know why I didn't think about it. The Fantastic Four wasn't in it at all, which I really enjoyed. And Fantastic Four were like one of the first like superhero like things I really deep got into, like read everything, got everything I could find about them. But yeah, that is weird. I'm kind of surprised, like maybe they just didn't feel like putting them in, didn't feel
I think
like
Marvel Studios doesn't own them. I think Sony owned.
So it was when Fox, when they had the rights to the Fantastic Four and to the X-Men, but now they have the rights now. But at the time, Marvel couldn't use these characters for legal reasons.
I feel like they should have waited until, because they're slowly buying back all their characters already. They
Yeah,
could
they honestly have them except for Namor for some reason. Like they can't do a solo movie about Namor, but it's weird.
I don't know.
It's random.
But yeah, if they could just like, they could have waited till Marvel Studios owned all their characters back, because they're slowly buying them all back. So now they have X-Men back. I think they have Fantastic Four back.
They have them.
Yeah. So there's only like a couple of characters left for them to have before they could have done a proper Civil War. Even if it wasn't exactly following the comic, they could have been a little bit closer with having like every Marvel character ever made was part of this. And that's why there are so many side trades, because the Punisher has its own trade, Spider-Man has its own trade, a couple of the other villains have their own trades, Captain America. Sheesh, do you remember any of the other side characters that had their own ones?
Because I was going to say, I think the only ones who weren't a part of it, and they were absolutely right to not be a part of it, because it's like, no, this is a human thing for you guys, but the X-Men, because I want to say Emma Frost is like, no, go away. Like, we're on our island now, we're chilling out, we're going to deal with giant robots in the future, but look, this is between you and the government, we don't care.
I think there were a couple of X-Men in it, but I think they, like, most of them were like, nah, man, we're good.
Nah. Yeah, I want to say Storm, because she had to be part of it, I think, because she was married to Black Panther at the time, and he had to get involved too. But the other one's like, we're not in this.
You guys, they were already registering mutants at the time, so they were already like, they already knew what the consequences were. So they were probably like, "Yo, this is gonna end real bad, so we're gonna go take a vacation."
Yeah,
beach time. I was pretty sure at the same time that's when there was a bathing suit issue of the X-Men came out. They were like, "Nah, man, we're at the beach. We're at the beach. We don't need another one. We're gonna have another one in a year, so we're good."
Yeah. Now I don't like the movie as much. Now that I've like sat and reflected and been like, you know what, it was missing a lot. It was
like they could have named it something else, and maybe like they could have introduced the act in this one, and then it could have been like people have been thinking about it and then slowly moved over to that. That's just my opinion though. I feel like they could have introduced the act in that movie. They could have like had a little talk or whatever and then done something else. It could have been called like Civil Skirmish or something. And then had later on Civil War with everybody.
Just Civil Squabble.
That's I can't remember what Jay said it was originally supposed to be called. Civil Serpent.
Serpent Society. Because I remember being so salty because it's like Captain America never got his true trilogy because it was the first movie, then Winter Soldier, and it was supposed to be Serpent Society, but then it's like, let's do Civil War. It's like, no, I want Captain. I don't want this.
But do you think that maybe they were like already knew they were going to do the whole like Infinity War thing, and they were kind of like excited and like gunning towards it as fast as they could?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah,
the seeds were definitely in place for that because the moment Thanos was introduced back in 2012, it was already like, yeah, we're going to do it at some point, like in the future. We're building up to it. But,
definitely. I mean, look how long it took them to build up to do Avengers. They did that all the way back in like the second Incredible Hulk movie. The one, I forgot I remember his last name is like Norton. Ed Norton. Thank you. How did I forget Ed but remember Norton? Of course I would. But like Nick Fury showed up in that one, and then Iron Man too. And then Iron Man, and then like they had this whole thing built up to do Avengers. So they had the idea to do it there. It was there. They just rushed the middle. I remember now. My other favorite big overall like storyline that everybody gets involved in is probably Marvel Zombies.
Marvel Zombies is fun.
Every single person gets involved. Even Galactus, who's like, "Oh, I'm gonna eat the planet full of zombies," and the zombies are like, "That's what you think," and they're like, "I'm not." No. And then they're like, "Oh, look at that! We can jump to other dimensions and eat more people." Rude. That was the only time that there were semi-smart zombies too. Like what was it? It was Hank Pym was still doing experiments while he was eating somebody.
Yeah.
No. Why? What about you guys? Is there any other like big like everybody comes together storylines that you guys really liked?
So I think and kind of like the same reason why I had never read Civil War is because of like the price, and it's sort of sometimes with like Marvel and DC and like the big guys, I feel like it's a little bit harder for people to get into it. And especially when they do big events, it's like I always knew about Civil War. I wasn't like I just didn't hear about it. I knew about it and I would see the comics. I think I even I literally own like and was collecting when Civil War II I think was going on. And I have some comics from it, and it always kind of annoyed me because I was like, there's no way I can afford to get the comics. Like I'm collecting this one. I was collecting the Eternals, and like, okay, like I have this little piece, like their little piece of the story, but like I don't, there's no way I can get the rest of it. Like where do I even though I'm collecting, like I don't know what's going on with the rest of the world. Like,
Yeah.
and I don't know. I don't know if that's just like me or if that's kind of a common feeling.
It's a common feeling.
Yeah, it's a common feeling because especially with Marvel, because it's not just the main storyline, and it's not like one or two side issues. It's literally across like all of their comics. And so if they had like 10 comics come out that day, say like in Captain America, one piece of the story is there. In Spider-Man, one piece of the story there, plus the main story. And you got like 10 of them. It's just sometimes it gets a little hard to get it all.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't have a favorite.
Don't worry. I have almost all of them. We'll get there. We will get there.
But
Shanice, what about you?
Secret Invasion was fun. I'm really hoping that Marvel will do that, especially since the Skrulls are in the MCU now.
Yeah.
I don't want to see some like, wait, is that really Carol or is that a Skrull? Like, I would be all over that. You know, like Infinity Saga is really fun too, which I always loved, and the Crisis events over at DC.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Yeah.
Crisis
So like, it is frustrating because it's like these stories are so fun, like these big grand stories. But nowadays, like how you said, Bean, it's like, all right, so you need to get the main series, which is issues 1 through 6, but you also need to get this issue of a book that you're not currently reading. And I kind of get it. They want you to check out these books while you're reading this one-off issue, but it's like, you know, if you're pulling per month minimum 6 titles that are like $4.99, that adds up very quickly for a storyline that lasts maybe like 4 or 5 months. Yeah. And it is frustrating. Like, you talk about it like at the store, and it's like I want to read this event, but I just can't afford it. So it sucks because I like big events, but I don't like searching for all these different titles. It should be like a scavenger hunt almost to read a story.
Yeah, I think that's why I like when indies do like big crossovers. Like when Valiant did Divinity, it was literally all you had to do is pick up Divinity, and then all the characters would come into it, and then in their storyline, because I was also reading what was I reading at the time? Ninjak, I think at the time. He was just like, oh, I need to go on a trip. Oh, I'm back from my trip. And it's just like, that was it. You didn't miss anything. I mean, if you were curious about his trip, then you could go pick up Divinity, but you didn't have to be. It didn't mess with the storyline at all. So it was really cool. You got like straightforward. All you had to do was pick up the one title. And that literally included every single character they've ever had and their entire like repertoire, whatever the word is. And I think that's why I really like how indies do it, because Zenescope does it amazingly. They have their main storyline that literally jumps dimensions and goes everywhere. But then if you're interested in a character in the storyline, you can go read their other stuff, but you don't have to have that other stuff to get the story.
Yeah. And I really wonder if Marvel has kind of clued in that people struggle with that, because right now, and it's not like a huge event, but they're doing Death of Doctor Strange. And this last week, we saw, and I don't know this something they've done before, but instead of doing full crossover where it's like this week's Avengers is crossing over, they put out the 2 one-shots.
Yeah.
It was the Avengers one-shot and the Strange Academy one-shot. And, I'm sure Strange Academy will be affected by death of Doctor Strange, but they're not making people they're not taking over other storylines. They're kind of just doing one-shots. So I wonder if we'll see more of that from them.
I hope so. Maybe they took lessons from the indies.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for joining us this week. I hope you guys enjoyed the show where we talked about our favorite Jewish creators and ranted a little bit about Civil War. I hope you guys enjoyed it. We will see y'all next week.
Bye.